So, what's the story with versioning? You guys got a beef with it?
Well, I've kind of always had a beef with it, but I didn't really think about it. So, Brett Cannon actually asked a question on, it was interesting. He wrote an article that I read recently called "Why I Don't Like SemVer Anymore." SemVer being semantic versioning,
That's the
and
2.1.0 style.
yeah,
Okay.
and like as opposed to calendar versioning or what we talked about this earlier of ZeroVer.
Zero
Um,
ver is like a even more negative version of SemVer.
yeah. So the interesting question is, okay, like if you, it's not straightforward as to what, so that there's often it's like the first digit, like if we say x dot y dot z, x is some major thing. So like some crazy new feature. It's either a crazy new feature or it's a incompatibility with the old one. Like we're going to change the interface.
Right. When Django went from 1 dot something to 2.0, they dropped support for Python 2, for example, and that was
Y-
indicated partly there.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So what constitutes an interface break? And that's what a lot of people think about. Well, what if you add a deprecation warning to something um, that you're planning on taking out in the next version? Is that adding an extra warning? Is that a major thing or a bug fix or a minor thing? And that's part of the discussion of most of us, I think, would think that maybe that's either that's just a bug fix or a minor thing. That's not a major thing. But
Right. And
what
to
if
me,
you,
it makes like no different. There's no new functionality. Nothing stopped working. That seems like a super minor. Like it should change the very last number because
yeah,
it doesn't
but
even
it
add or change a functionality.
but it is adding a warning. So if I'm running Python with the flag that turns all warnings into errors, or if I'm running my tests such and that's like normal with running tests is you turn all your warnings into failures so that you find them. Now you really did change the interface because I to get rid of that warning I have to go and either I need to change to not I need to not look at that warning or I need to change my use of that thing. So it is kind of an interface break.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so that's part of his discussion is that it's not really straightforward to say that what is a major, minor, or micro change, what that really is. It's a gray area. There's discussion, and then also really what the observation that the three digits kind of makes sense if you are maintaining three or more branches. So if you're maintaining a current branch plus the features you're working on the next one, that's another branch. Plus you're doing bug fixes to the current production one. So you've got like development going on in one branch and fixes in the other one, and then minor things going on. You might have like even more branches that you're maintaining at once. For a large project with lots of people on it, that totally makes sense. For small projects and side projects and things where you're not maintaining a bunch of stuff, it's one branch and you fix bugs. You're not planning on adding new features, or if you are, well, I don't know, it's so infrequent that doesn't matter. Um, so maybe two digits is enough, just x dot y, or maybe just one digit. Because there's a whole one of the reasons why a whole bunch of people are at zero for is they're trying to not be backwards incompatible, uh, and they're not going to add any major new features. It's a simple tool or something. Um, the other thing Brett brings up is basically you shouldn't depend on this stuff because it's nebulous and wishy-washy. You shouldn't depend on the numbering, semantic versioning to see whether or not what versions of a dependent project you're using. You should rely on continuous integration and testing. So do a minimum version for the project you're using, but don't do a max, and uh, use your testing to find out if there's any problems. Always do the latest one, and in the version doesn't really matter. You're going to keep ahead, and if your CI breaks, then you might have to pin your dependency to earlier one. But also, you should always pin your dependencies to specific versions and just use your CI and testing system to see if you can move forward. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you use something like Dependabot or PyUp or something like that, it'll automatically look at your repository, increment those versions, run some CI if you have it set up, and you'll know if it's acceptable or not. So you can get the system to tell you, hey, you should update this pinned version, and click here to allow it.
Yeah, and I love systems like that, and it totally makes it so you can review it and go, yeah, that's good, and let them. Often those just show up as a merge request that you just accept, right?
That's right. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. So good discussion about thinking about whether semantic versioning really is appropriate for your project.
Yeah, so do you remember what the recommendation was? I scanned it and I didn't see like a super clear like do this instead.
No, the at the end there's a kind of a summary that I kind of like really cribbed and put in our show notes. But the essentially it's the try to pin the lowest version or pin your versions of course, but have a low end, but don't have an upper end, and just test. As for using dependencies for your own version, it should match your branching strategy really. So if you're really not supporting three branches, three-digit semantic versioning doesn't make sense. You can do two-digit or one-digit versioning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, pretty cool.